just wow. So Syphon Filter 1 was a solid game. Had a lot of potential, had a few areas that I didn't like, but still a good game. Syphon Filter 2 just came in, blew me away. It improved upon the first game in every facet. A couple of problems here or there, but nothing too major, and I just loved that game. Then I played Syphon Filter 3, and oh boy, Syphon Filter 3 is probably one of the worst games I have played in a long time. And seeing as Syphon Filter as a franchise doesn't really have a solid foundation for a good story, I would outright just tell you to skip this game entirely. Before we get further in this review, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the hype button. I'm grateful to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ for bringing each and every one of you to my channel, as I know you guys could be doing anything right now, but you decided to watch little old me, and I know it's because of them. I'm grateful for each and every one of you for stopping by, and I hope you all have a blessed day. Now let's get back into the review. Let's go ahead and get the pros out the way because it's not that many of them. Syphon Filter 3 has brand new CGI graphics, which I think is an improvement over the first two games. They look nice for the time. Of course, they look kind of stiff compared to games today, but you could tell the effort they put into these graphics, and they wanted Gabe to finally look like a person and not just kind of like a stick figure. And I think they did a good job representing the characters as they all look good in the CGI cutscenes. As for the in-game visuals, the sound effects, and everything else, it's basically the same as the second game. Of course, Gabe's new look is on his new character model, so his face has textures that it didn't have before. But other than that, when it comes to the core gameplay, it's basically Syphon Filter 2. The controls are the same, the feel of the game is the same. Now, one thing that I will say that is interesting is that Syphon Filter 3 allows the player to lock on aim a lot more than any other game in the series. Syphon Filter 1, the beginning of the game and probably near the middle point, you can lock on and aim and run and gun around with ease. But after a certain point, you need to start using precision aiming because the enemies just do so much damage and you need to get headshots or you will die. Syphon Filter 2, throughout the entire game, they mixed in both enemy types, so you have to always aim down sights. And it's to the point that it almost becomes pointless to even use the lock-on aiming because once you get good at shooting enemies in the face, it's a one instant kill, so why even waste your time trying to lock on and shoot them unless you just have to. Like I said, this is one thing that stood out in the gameplay for me because throughout the entire game, I was able to just lock on and run and gun, which is actually pretty refreshing. It may make the game a little bit easier, but trust me, this isn't a game that you want to be that difficult anyway because it's not that good. The only other pro I can say about this game is that missions are extremely short. I've always felt that missions in Syphon Filter 1 and 2 took too long. 2 was a little bit better than 1, but 3, the missions are over and done with before you know it. Some missions that have multiple objectives in them can be a little bit longer, but just looking at the time it took me to complete Syphon Filter 3 compared to the first two, and yes, I did die a little bit more in the first two games because they're actually more difficult, but still, 8 hours to beat this game is due to the fact that it's not as difficult as the previous games, plus missions are so short that you can just get in and out of them with the ease, which is great when a game sucks like Syphon Filter 3. So let's get into why this game sucks. One of the major reasons is how missions are structured, and this goes back to the game's missions and levels being shorter than before. Now, what I know for sure is that this game was sort of rushed. Richard Hamm was the lead designer on all three games, but around the midpoint of the third game's development, he left, leaving everything to Jeff Ross, who we could say is the lead developer of Syphon Filter 3, although some of Richard Hamm's work was still used in the development of Syphon Filter 3. And keep in mind, the team behind this was very small, and a lot of the developers that worked on Syphon Filter moved on to the PlayStation 2 game Syphon Filter Omega Strain. So it really was just a handful of developers trying to get a game out in time. So I give them grace and understand that they had a lot of work ahead of them, but to me, the game still sucks, and that kind of matters as a consumer. That's what I know for sure based upon interviews. Now, my own theory is that Syphon Filter 3 has this thing called mission mode. It's basically a mini game where you can select any character you want and you're thrown into a generic looking map and you have to complete a challenge. These challenges are very short, and if Syphon Filter had better gameplay, I would say they would be fun, but overall, I just think they're a distraction. Both Syphon Filter 1 and 2 were filled with set pieces, especially the second game, and they are the highlight of the series. Syphon Filter 3 trades all that in by making each level feel like a series of objectives that, yes, do make sense in context of the story, but it just feels like a bunch of checklists, a bunch of busy work. There is no real memorable moment, maybe a handful. There was a moment where you rode on a mine cart. That was kind of interesting, but That's just one moment out of the tons of moments in Syphon Filter 2 and 1 that constantly kept happening. Those games were thrill rides. It felt like I was playing two meaty campaigns, whereas Syphon Filter 3 feels like I'm playing again mission mode, but with a story behind it. This explains why levels are so short, and I also believe this is why you run and gun so much in this game. Now, looking at some interviews, Jeff Ross mentioned that they wanted to focus on Syphon Filter's strength, and they felt that the strength of Syphon Filter was the run and gun gameplay. I already went over the fact that run and gun gameplay is a part of the Syphon Filter franchise, but as you can see by Syphon Filter 3, when you lean so much on that, the game becomes just extremely easy. And this is tricky because Jeff Ross mentioned that many people thought Syphon Filter 1 was extremely hard, and I agree. Then they felt that Syphon Filter 2 was also hard, but from the development standpoint, they felt like they found a balance. I would agree they did find a balance. I felt Syphon Filter 2 was fair. It had its hard moments here or there, but it wasn't nothing like the first game. And here comes Syphon Filter 3, which is really easy for the most part. Near the end, you get into some BS moments, which I'm gonna go over. But guess what they bring back in Syphon Filter 3? And it's in almost every level, like even the first level. They bring back the most annoying and most difficult part about Syphon Filter 1, which is that enemies just spawn anywhere. They'll spawn in front of you, behind you. I've even caught some moments where enemies, if you walk slow enough, they don't spawn in, but if you walk fast enough, then they'll just pop out of corners. It's ridiculous, and it's all over Syphon Filter 3. And near the end game, where enemies do more damage and you don't have a lot of health, this becomes a reminder of why I didn't like Syphon Filter 1. But at least Syphon Filter 1 had cool moments, set pieces. It had the action that Syphon Filter was known for. It had all those things going for it. So even though that game was frustrating, it felt like an epic adventure with some minor headaches. Syphon Filter 3 is mostly boring, and then it just gets worse as you keep playing. One of the most annoying missions is with this tank. You have to kill all these guards that, mind you, they keep spawning in, and they spawn all around you from all different directions. You have to get this C4, hurry up and get behind the tank before it turns around and blows you up, and then set off the bombs. Once you do, you win. But again, to even get to the C4, you have to deal with enemies that keep spawning all around you. There is no break. They never let up. They spawn in instantly, and you don't know where they're going to come from. This is not fun. This is not fair. And when you have little to no health and you could die instantly, who found this enjoyable? I know exactly why people probably like Syphon Filter 3 over the first two if they felt the first two were really hard, because like I said, this game is really easy because you could just run and gun all day. Lock-on aiming in any video game has never been difficult to do. You hold the lock-on button, you hold the fire button, you win. Just don't stand in front of the bullets and you won't die. Yes, I'm pretty sure these people enjoyed the game, they just wanted a mindless shooter. But someone like me that enjoyed the stealth gameplay, which they improved greatly upon in the second game, and I don't even feel like they had to do much in the third game, but included, but they really don't have it here at all. The introduction to the headhunters in the second game was cool, and they're here in this game, but guess what? Because you can lock on aim all day, they become pointless. They're here, but they are not as challenging as before, so you might as well say you can remove them from the game. They serve no purpose. And everything that was just cool about the first and second game are gone. Like, there's no level in this game that reminds me of the nightclub from Syphon Filter 2 or even the subway crash from Syphon Filter 1. Now, there are a few levels that I would say are interesting, but they have frustrating moments. One of my favorite levels, at least from an aesthetic standpoint, is the level where you play as Teresa. It's snowy, it's dark, you have to dodge past these enemies, which is kind of stupid. Like, you literally can't shoot these guys, you have to just run past them, and that's kind of, I guess, a interesting challenge. But where the game gets frustrating, going back to those spawning in enemies, is that near the second half of this stage, you have to fight through wave after wave after wave of spawning in enemies. And keep in mind, Syphon Filter 3's spawn system, it's not like if an enemy spawns to your left, they're always going to spawn there, so you can just remember all spawn points. Some enemies will always spawn where you previously saw them, while others can spawn anywhere around you, even behind you, like I said. And you're in this narrow pathway where enemies can spawn in with shotguns and just blast you away. Now, remember, I said this game is more about its lock-on aiming. In situations like this, lock-on aiming is pointless because it's too many enemies to fight. You can't lock on all of them. So the best thing for you to do is to go in first person and get off a bunch of headshots. But even that is unfairly hard because there's barely any cover here. I had to pray to Jehovah God for him to save me from this moment. I just had to book it. So I just ran past all these guys and ignored them. But let me tell you what's even worse. To increase the difficulty even further, they start removing checkpoints, or rather they give you less checkpoints than before. And remember that when you die, you respawn with the health that you had when you got to the checkpoint the first time. So it's not even like you get full health. So imagine going through some of the most difficult parts of the game. There are no health pickups along the way, and you're just getting jumped by enemies left and right because they're spawning all over the place because again, it's confusing. They don't want the game to be too challenging because the first two games were too challenging. So they let you just lock on aim and run around like a mindless chicken all day long and shoot people. Okay, cool. But then you spawn enemies all around the player because you know video games have to have some type of a challenge or they'll be boring, and then you just make it unfair. Now, I mentioned that stealth gameplay is gone. What I mean by that is you can still sneak around if you want to, but there's no point to doing it. And every mission is designed that at some point, the bad guys will just aggro on you anyway. So that means that any attempt to being stealthy is not rewarded. You sneaking around and popping headshots off doesn't matter because eventually something out of your control is going to cause them all to spawn upon you, and there's nothing you could do about it. And let's not forget that this game has barely any boss fights. Now, to be fair, Syphon Filter 1 had the most boss fights, Syphon Filter 2 had less, and Syphon Filter 3 had basically only one. And let's talk about the final boss in this game, which I feel was very stupid. The final boss fight in this game is literally you're on the train and you're walking forward, shooting a bunch of bad guys until you get to the end where you need to shoot the final boss in this game, which is a character that keeps popping up and changing her hair every 5 seconds. We'll talk about the story in a second. But Jehovah God had to show me how to beat this fight because she's standing behind bulletproof glass. There is no way to shoot her at all. By accident, I found out I can jump on top of this train and I thought, okay, maybe I'm supposed to do something up here. I dropped back down once I realized that was a dead end and realized there's a window next to her that I can sort of kind of shoot the glass out. So I thought, am I supposed to shoot the glass out, jump on top of the train, and there's going to be a button to prompt me to sneak in through the window? No, nothing happens. And then I realized that all the windows on the train can be blown up, so that was just a pointless thing in the first place. So I was standing here just wondering what I'm supposed to do. You get too close, she instantly kills you or the hostage. And I just felt like I was missing something. And then Jehovah God showed me that I was missing something. So let me tell you something. There's one special gun in this game that has a special feature. If you aim down sights with a particular gun, I believe it's the AUG, or I don't remember what gun it is, but it allows you to have X-ray vision and to shoot through walls. Yes, I've seen this gun before. You get this gun earlier in the game, but you only see it like one time. So it's something that you might forget even exists. And because you're doing so much run and gun aiming in this game, you might have never even went first person with it in the first place, even though it does this. So you're thinking, oh, just switch to that weapon and then shoot her and then you win. No, you have to first realize that the weapon is on the train in a box and it's very dark and you probably don't even notice that it's there. So essentially, to solve this boss fight, you just need to get this one particular gun and kill her. Now compare that to the second game's ending boss fight, where you're given a shotgun that can push back the enemy and you have to first get to the shotgun, get the ammo, dodge all his attacks, outrun him because he cannot die by normal bullets. And then you realize that this shotgun only pushes him back. So then you think to yourself, what am I supposed to do here? And then you put two and two together, or in my case, Jehovah God explains to you that, hey, you can push him into the propeller and it will take him out. Cool, problem solving. A puzzle was involved, something to actually realize what you're supposed to do. And all these pieces were in front of you. You know the helicopter's here. You know this enemy's super strong and there's nothing you could do about it. So it causes the player to look around and figure things out. But when all that is in front of you is a character behind bulletproof glass, and keep in mind, throughout this entire corridor of a stage, you've been fighting grunts that have been holding hostages as well, and all you had to do was just shoot them down. So it's nothing really telling you that you need this special gun. And even if you thought, okay, I need this gun because I know this gun exists, how would you even know that the gun is here? It's very stupid. The whole game, just bad. Now, I don't want to crap on the game too bad. I will admit, early on, before the game got ridiculously difficult and annoying, yes, the mindless shooting enemies around, running and gunning was fine. The opening stage where you're sniping guys in a hotel room, it made you think that you're going to get a bunch of the set piece moments like the first two games, but these are very far and few between. Like I said, there was a mission where you play as, that's another thing, you play as tons of different characters in this game. It doesn't matter, they all play the same. But there's a mission where you can ride on a train track, kind of like some Donkey Kong Country type stuff, shoot a couple guys, you got to quickly jump off before you die. That was cool. That's like one of the few set pieces in this game, but that's simply not enough. Another thing I thought was kind of interesting is that this game had you freeing slaves a lot. Like it was a lot of free the slaves. Like you had to free slaves in Africa. You had to free some slaves in, I believe it was Mexico. Trust me, this game's story sucks. You're not going to pay attention to anything that's going on. You should stop paying attention to any Syphon Filter story because none of them are that good, at least the ones I played. But yeah, it's a lot of freeing the slaves thing. Nothing wrong with that. I just thought it was kind of a weird subject matter that kept coming up over and over again. It was kind of strange. And before you say it must have something to do with the main story, it doesn't. It's just a side objective in a lot of the missions. Like I'm just trying to fish and find like positive things to say about Syphon Filter 3 because I don't like just crapping on anything, but it's really nothing much to say. The first mission was cool. You snipe a bunch of bad guys. You can even kind of like shoot out the billboard on top of the hotel. Gabe has on like this James Bond-esque tuxedo. It's pretty cool. I like this level. It looked nice. You're shooting up guys in a hotel. It's very unique. The mission with Teresa where she's helping out these country folk that kind of have like an underground bunker. I think they're like conspiracy theorists that they feel the world's going to end. So they're like stocking up on supplies and things like that. That mission was kind of cool. You're like escorting a pregnant woman. There's a moment in time where you get night vision goggles, which is like one of the very few, if only times in this game that exists. Remember, they removed the stealth from this game basically. And yeah, that's it. Like you're talking about, and again, there's a bunch of frustration in that mission. So like the only really good mission is the first mission. And after that, it's really no reason to play Syphon Filter 3 again. And what's crazy is as far as first missions go in a Syphon Filter game, the third game's first mission is still worse than the first two game's first mission. So it still sucks. Now we're going to wrap this up with the story. It's bad. The end. This game's story is a prequel / sequel. So the story picks up where the second game left off. Gabe and Leon are being questioned in their involvement with taking down the agency. And it's very much clear that the guy that's questioning you is the main villain. And it's probably because they kind of sort of show his silhouette before this even happened. So you know it's him anyway, but whatever. So the whole story is a bunch of characters giving their recollection of how they met Gabe, how they got involved with the agency, about the Syphon Filter virus, and just comparing that to the first two games. The first one is about the Syphon Filter virus. Terrorists are all over the place. People are dying. It's a lot of explosions, action, excitement. That's all cool. Syphon Filter 2 picks up where the first game left off. The intro to Syphon Filter 2 is Gabe running through a bunch of fire, just gunning down bad guys left and right. It's telling you what the game's going to be. Syphon Filter 3 is a freaking court case. It's just Gabe and his friends sitting around giving their testimony and then doing flashback missions, which is a bunch of just bullcrap. And again, if it wasn't so obvious who the villains were and what this story was going to lead to. Now, the only part of the story that's kind of like a crazy moment is the fact that Teresa from the second game, who died in the second game, is still alive somehow. How did she survive a shotgun blast to the stomach? I don't know. Syphon Filter retcons its story all the time, so I'm not mad at this because I actually like Teresa as a character, but just overall, when it comes to writing, it's just dumb. And the game ends with the same villain that keeps escaping in all three games, basically getting away once again. And Gabe and his friends are now going to start their own agency from the ground up and really like fight the world or whatever. I don't care what happened. I just know it was interesting. It was stupid. And I highly recommend you guys don't play this game. Maybe you guys have nostalgia for the multiplayer, which is something I can't play. I heard the multiplayer is good. And going back to that mission mode, it's just a bunch of busy work. It's uninteresting. And if you didn't find the main missions in the main campaign interesting, you're not going to find those interesting because it's basically the same thing. I highly recommend you do not play Syphon Filter 3 and you just stick to the first two games because this game is bad. And I fully understand why this game had the lowest ratings out of the trilogy. Thanks for watching my video, or rather rant, on Syphon Filter 3. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that hype button. I'm grateful to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ for bringing each and every one of you to my channel, as I know you guys could be doing anything right now, but you decided to watch little old me, and I know it's because of them. Once again, I'm grateful and thankful for each and every one of you for stopping by. It's unfortunate that I didn't like Syphon Filter 3, but hey, that's what happens sometimes. Not every game is good, but let me know what you think in the comments about Syphon Filter 3. Did you enjoy it growing up? Is the multiplayer the highlight of this game? Because this game has to have some redeeming qualities. But let me know what you think in the comments. Peace out, keep gaming, God bless, and I'll see you guys in the next video.